found AHO Radio. We're authentic human outliers coming together to help heal the fear of being authentic. To bring back genuine human conversation. No hype, no sensationalism, just honest talk about the critical issues affecting society, affecting humankind. And now, here are the hosts of AHO Radio, John Krotec and Bill Protzmann. Hey, John Krotec, it's Bill Protzmann here from the lower left corner of these United States. How are things out your way?
Hot. It's been really warm today. It's been like mid-90s and the sun's shining. You know, it rained a little bit a few days ago, but it's starting to dry out, and just super excited to be here and talk a little bit about poetry.
Sounds beautiful, man. Who are those people behind you?
These are some awesome people. Of course, my disclaimer for this episode is not to denigrate any person on this planet, especially special needs kids or special needs adults. The poem today is hard hitting, and it has to do with racism, which seems to be like the global event taking place right now.
Hey, keep talking, buddy. I've got the sound of freedom going by. The Marines are flying, so I'm listening to you, but I'm muted. It's called Being the Mongoloid, right? No, Bennie the Mongoloid.
Yeah, Bennie the Mongoloid, and it's, you're gonna like it. It's really a racism harangue, which also means a rant, and it really gets to the core of well, it's my creative license on racism itself and what racism really is, and maybe what it isn't. But we'll talk a little bit about it. But yeah, it's called Bennie the Mongoloid, which probably isn't politically correct anyways, but I use it as part of the title to make a point. So here you go.
Let her fly.
Bennie the Mongoloid, racism harangue. Bennie was challenged, all right. Was born with a messed up chromosome. Science said he was Mongoloid. The real challenge came from those around him. They made fun of him incessantly, pushed him around, called him ugly and stupid, kind of like Mongoloid racism. They were ignorant, instigators, so hateful, raised without any self-respect. After all, racism is really not about being different, nor about the color of our skins. It's the cover people use for hate, plain and simple. You know, so racism invokes many different things to different people. And, but I personally believe, you know, if you do the research, you know, every race on this planet has either been oppressed or has been an oppressor. And, you know, I got the DNA test. My wife gave me the gift a few years back of, you know, from ancestry.com to figure out like where I came from. Who are my people? And interestingly enough, it came back mainly Slavic. And of course, that was my dad's side, and Irish on my mom's side. And so what does Slavic mean? You know, I went back and I did some research on Slavic people, and, you know, they're right across the Adriatic Sea from Italy, in the place where Yugoslavia is. And for several hundred years, the Slavic people were enslaved, yes, white slaves, by Muslims. And that went on for a few centuries, you know, 8th, 9th, 10th century, whatnot. And then after that, it was the Ottoman Empire and the Turks who destroyed my ancestral homeland, and also killed a lot of my ancestors and imprisoned them too. And then we can get into the Serbians, and that was probably just a genocide, you know. So, you know, that's my dad's side. Somewhere in the late 1890s, they decided they were going to make a change and come to the U.S. for something better. Okay. My mom's side was a little bit different. Of course, that's the Irish side of the family. And if you want to look at Irish history, the Emerald Isle, you'll see that they were constantly harassed by the Brits, the Scots, take it back further, the Vikings. And right around the 1820s, somebody in that family, one of my ancestors, decided to come to the U.S. and make a go of it here. and they settled in South Carolina, and they were poor, non-slave owning farmers who during the American Civil War had their farm burned to the ground, their lands destroyed by the Northern armies. Okay, so the point of the historical harangue, if you will, about my past is that, for 800 or 900 years, of recorded history, my ancestors were harassed by people of many different colors. Now, my grandfather on my dad's side did not like the Serbians. And when I say did not like, that's an understatement. He basically had a lot of animosity, a lot of resentment.
Well, of course he would, right? Because they'd been harassed for generations by that point.
Correct. And again, it's an obvious human reaction to feeling oppressed. And yes, but the choice to act on that feeling of anger or racism is personal. And I'm responsible for me, and I make the choices whether or not to react to that or not, that hatred. And for me, I choose not to. I choose not to, show hatred towards any race. And of course, Bennie the Mongoloid is all about hatred of, people that are different. And it's really not about the difference that we see in others, their skin, the way they look, like these beautiful looking young people behind me. It's really more about the hatred that one feels in their heart.
Yeah, I like your line that the cover people use for hate.
Yeah, it's hard hitting. And what's interesting about the truth, and I can tell you right now, Bill, I never claimed sainthood. I've made lots of mistakes in my life, but that's what it is. It's so much easier to take our pain, our personal pain. Oh, and by the way, would it make sense for me to track down the ancestors or the relatives of those people who destroyed or enslaved my ancestors and hold them responsible some way? No, I'm not saying monetarily, but I'm saying hatred-wise. Do I show hate for those Muslims and those Turkish people and the Brits and the descendants of the Vikings? And, how far do we take the concept of racism and the underlying underbelly of it, which is really just hate? I love the reggae star Bob Marley because he's another very interesting guy who went to war with words. And if you listen to some of Bob Marley's tunes, you get a sense that here's a man that understands pain, understands historical legacies when it comes to slavery and the oppression of peoples of color. And by the way, white is a color. White people can be oppressed as well. And he took that great pain and was able to utilize his God-given talents to play reggae music and to send a message of love everywhere. Because aren't we really trying to be accepted for who we are? How can one apologize for the color of their skin?
Well, we've got amazing teachers who've been saying this for years, right? Turn the other cheek, I think is what Jesus said. And we've got the Buddha, good Lord, that guy, that dude in whatever incarnation he's in right now, he had nothing but trouble for the last 60 years, something like that, kicked out of his
And Gandhi and all the freedom fighters.
Yeah, I don't see any hatred there.
Yeah, I mean, it's history is rife with luminaries who stepped outside of the race baiting game, if you will. Of course, it wasn't called that back then, but I even was thinking about Frederick Douglass the other day, and he said, the greatest freedom that we can have as humans is to educate ourselves and to learn how to read. And so the key, I think, in what Frederick Douglass and so many of these luminaries try to get across to us is the importance of educating ourselves about the truth. You know, who we are, what our past is all about. And I never knew that there was Slavic white slaves. You know, gee whiz. I'm more curious about it than I am hateful about it. And again, I'm not going to say, you know, the whole privilege thing about color is a whole different, you know, I can write a poem on that too. But I feel like if we're, you know, there's always bad seeds in any culture, or people that are in bad pain and they do bad things to good people. And I don't think anybody on this planet should be apologizing for the deeds of people that have the same skin color. Of course, we can be compassionate, we can understand, and we can feel a great sense of sadness. But the universe gave me this covering. And I believe that to apologize for it is almost like to just kick dirt in the face of the Creator. You know, I'm sorry things have happened to people in the past. I had nothing to do with it. And I'm not being facetious. I'm being totally
I read you because,
yeah,
you know, we're all wandering through this process together at whatever our speeds and capabilities and understanding and all of that is. And we're going to make mistakes. And some of them are going to really suck. I mean, there have been some big mistakes made. And I mean, you argue about whether or not America should have dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan, stuff like that. And there are little mistakes made, like at the micro level, where you and I work as fathers, you know, or as friends. It's like it isn't a perfect science, you know.
No, and you're so right. You know, history unfolds the way it unfolds. You know, the people, the places, the things that happen change. But one thing that doesn't change is history. Once it happens, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot go back and change it. You know, I mean, let's see. Think about this for a second. As a Christian, right? Now, the early Christians during the Roman Empire were filleted, hung up to dry. They were beat. They were crucified. They poured hot oil in the sockets of their skulls. And, you know, I mean, my gosh, I mean, do we track down the descendants of the Roman centurions and say, hey, you need to make up for that, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, how far does it go, Bill?
Reparations.
How far does it go? I mean, we can't change history. And I've read so many books, whether it's self-help books or whatever, that say we spend a lot of our life frustrated about the past. And sooner or later, we have to just look in the mirror and we have to get over it. We have to take personal responsibility of who we are. I cannot be responsible for the decisions that other people make. And let's just say, let's take it a bit further. Just because I vote for somebody and they do something that I don't necessarily agree with, doesn't throw me into that category.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because we all need to take a stand for something. Like the buck stops here, it stops there, it stops everywhere you are right now. Whoever you are that are listening, the buck stops with you. So what are you going to do with that, right?
Pretty heavy, you know.
And you can't fret over what's gone before. You're reminding me of an opportunity I had once to meet a guy named Joe Renteria. So Joe Renteria, when I met him about a year ago now, maybe 2 years, was 100 years old. And he had been a photographer in World War II for the Americans, of course. He was in the Pacific Theater. So it was his job to take pictures at like Iwo Jima and Guadalcanal and all those places. And he survived. And returned, came back. And Joe is a leader in a Native American tribe local to San Diego, a respected leader. And when he spoke and I watched this presentation, I felt like I had to go up to him afterwards and just say, Mr. Renteria, because I know that my white ancestors did some unkind things to Native Americans. I went up to him and I said, Joe, I have to, in some way, let you know that I take responsibility for those things that my ancestors did. We were wrong, and I am so sorry. And he looked me straight in the eye and he said, Bill, that's in the past. What are we going to do now? And it was like that's a 100-year-old guy with plenty of reason to be upset, who simply said, Bill, let's put it behind us. Let's talk about today. What are we doing today?
I had two, that's a great story, and thanks for sharing. I had two good friends who are both gone now. One of them was a Vietnam veteran. He was Uglala Sioux. His name was Eagle Man, Ed McGaw. And Ed introduced me to the Red Road, a Native American Plains Indians tradition and spirituality. And he, he was shunned by the culture, the American culture, when he got back. And it wasn't just Americans, but it was the culture, white Americans. But on the reservation, he was revered as a hero amongst his people, a warrior that took to the air in an F-4 and actually flew with an American flag with him all the time. And then Big Jim was another Sioux who passed away, Sioux guy that I knew. And he was another guy. Him and I spoke many, many, many times about the culture and the cultures and the marriage and assimilation. And, these were guys that had come to grips with who they were. They were a warrior class, and they had gotten over it. And I got to say, those two guys, God bless them, wherever they are. We'll meet again on the good red road somewhere past the Milky Way someday. But, those are two guys that got over the past.
So that's the challenge, right, John? Like that's our challenge, like you and me, that's our challenge, is how do we, I hate to say it this way because it's such a cliche, but how do we live in the moment? When we've got all that past, bubbling around with all of its baggage, the challenge is how do we live in the moment? How do we show up every day without the hatred that is probably justifiably ours, but that doesn't solve anything. Like, people, hello, is hatred going to fix anything? Is violence going to...
Well, but nobody's immune to hatred. And the thing, for some reason, we keep thinking that the colors of our skin somehow either make us less than or more than.
Nah, 10% of the people think that. Let's move beyond that.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying, but that's what I'm saying. A lot of people, yeah, you're right. We call it the silent majority. And what's interesting is, during this whole COVID and all of these protests and these violent riots, and, most of the people that I talk to, and it's white people and it's black people.
Yeah, all colors.
Asian friends of mine, they're all just scratching their head going, isn't this ridiculous? And I'm serious. I'm not being facetious here. It's people that I know, we're just scratching our heads going, what on earth is going on? With this expose of hate, that's not what people want. And whoever's out there doing it, who's ever out there spreading the hate, you may or may not listen to this, but it's not going to work. There's people don't want to live a life in fear and with hatred ruling the day. And when you're destroying property and hurting and maiming people, all you're doing is, just showing us who you really are. And law enforcement, come on, there's 750 million civilian law enforcement interactions like every year. And the bad ones stand out like a sore thumb because the good ones just go about doing their duty and you never hear about it. But, who are you going to call if somebody, breaks into your house, or that the wheels get stolen off your car, or there's a domestic violence thing taking place in the house next to you? Who are you going to call? You're going to call the people that wear the uniform, that are out there, probably 99.99% of them, that are really trying to do the right thing. We have to take personal responsibility. We have to support law enforcement. We have to be cognizant and compassionate about people's issues when it comes to race. But when it comes to hatred, the only way we're ever going to beat hatred is with love. And to answer your question, how do we get around that? You have to find that place in your heart where you can find a genuine love for your fellow man, brothers and sisters of all races, all colors, all religions, all nationalities. And realize, we're in this fight, this struggle called humankind.
Yeah.
We're in it together, man.
Yeah.
And by destroying each other the way that I've witnessed here, first time in my lifetime I've ever seen crazy stuff like this, where cities have just erupted. It's just hatred manifested. It's years and years and years of hatred that people haven't dealt with. And I just pray for those people. That's all I can do. But I can tell you this, I'm never going to treat anybody with any racist mentality because I don't hate people. I can't apologize for something God has given me. And all I can do is live in the moment and pray and hope that I still have the strength to do the right thing. You know, when sometimes my own anger takes over, you know, I'm human too. But
there's a military ethos that is so poignant for me, which is we don't leave anybody behind. Comrade falls on the battlefield, you get that guy with you out of harm's way. And same thing in military training, you can only go as fast as the slowest member in the unit. So of course you try to encourage the slow people to go faster, like so everybody can get there in time. But this whole issue of racism is slowing us down. And I think that that's something we can join with the people who have all that hate about the color of their skin. I think we can join with them and just say, hey, we all want to go there together, but we can only go as fast as the slowest person in the unit. And if the unit is all of us together being dragged down by 10% who feel that violence is the way forward, then we're going to either have to wait till the violence is over or help those people see there's another alternative to violence that can work. And I'm saying those people, and please hear me on this, because I am not one of those violent people. And when I look at people who are violent, I look across and I say those people who are violent with intention. It's not in any way meant to denigrate someone, because they're what they have, their passion, the fear, all of the stuff that's gone along with that. That's the fuel that we need to get there. That's the fuel that fueled America's separation from England, you know, and fueled the Civil War, and it's fueled a whole bunch of other conflicts around the world for a long time. But if we can go there together, we're much stronger. And
well, I'm going to take it a step further.
Yeah, take it there, because you know what I'm about to say, right? Go for it.
Well, no, but I'm going to take it a step further. That first of all, it's much more difficult to exhibit love.
Yeah, it's the hard way.
I mean, it's easy to blow stuff up.
Yep.
It's much easier to bite. It's much harder to bite your tongue and not blow stuff up. But you know, here's a challenge for anybody that's a civilian that might be listening. When we were trained, now I'm a non-combat veteran, but we were trained for it. And even in our training, we would have to dig emplacements, you know, sandbags and things dug in the earth. And when we were doing our exercises, we never turned to the guy next to us and said, hey, what's your political party? Or, by the way, you're a black man, I don't want you here. Can you send me one of the other white guys over, or can you send me an Asian guy over here? I don't want to be next to this guy, right? We didn't do that.
That'll fly about 0 feet.
Yeah, we knew that we were one team, one mission, one battle, one fight, and we were in the struggle together, and our will to survive was greater than our differences.
Because of what? Because of love. Like you were saying, you did the hard work out of love.
You know, you might like the San Diego Padres, right? And
yeah, I mean, they're all right.
I like the Devil Rays, right? And we can remember, you and I can come to fisticuffs over games and which team is better, right? People fight all the time about sports.
It's true. It's crazy, but it's true.
So when they're acting on that mine's bigger than yours kind of mentality, what they're forgetting about is their love for the sport that they're arguing about. Wouldn't it be cool to really talk about the players of the past and the sport and how it evolved? And
we used to, man. Remember trading cards? Baseball, football, we had trading cards growing up, and it was an honor to be able to collect the top players. That, you know, that was really difficult and hard, and you would work and give up, you know, some of your decks so that you could get one that you really wanted. That sort of cooperative, what do I want to call it? Cooperative selfishness. It's like, you know, you can get something of what you want, but you've got to give up something else for that to be able to balance it all out. So you give up something that somebody else wants, and you are able to achieve a tiny thing that you want, and eventually it just kind of all sorts itself out. But it's a process, right? It's like, okay, yeah.
Well, no, it is a process, but it takes also, it takes commitment, it takes perseverance, resiliency.
Oh, yeah.
All the things. Everybody wants something done now.
It's hard work.
Yeah, it takes hard work. You know, I read the other day where a new statistic, you know, in a survey taken, 87% of the people who were who were not profiled, who were surveyed, said that they were not happy with their lives and where they were at.
Oh yeah, happiness or unhappiness is on the rise.
I mean, so think about that. 87%, that's like 9 out of 10 people that you pass every day is not running at an optimal human condition. So we've got a world, whoever was surveyed, we've got a world that's just unhappy. And so I'm sitting at a corner and I see you pulling up in a nice Land Rover and I'm like unhappy, and I'm not happy that you have that. So I roll your door open and throw you out and I steal it, you know? And that, of course, that's just an example, but you know, this has got to stop. This hatred and this unhappiness and these poor choices that we're making. And then we didn't even get into being co-opted by other narratives, but let me share the poem again. And I just
let's hear it again.
Yeah, I just want to say, if you're angry about race issues or racial tension or racial emotions, take a look in the mirror and ask yourself why. Take personal stock of who you are. And I'm serious. I'm not BSing here. Look in the mirror and ask yourself why you're upset. I'm upset that my ancestors were enslaved. I'm upset about it. All I can tell you is that it happened a long time ago. Those people that enslaved my people, my tribe, I'm not mad at them. I don't hold them accountable for anything other than just trying to survive. And for the people in my lineage, in my tribe that were enslaved, somewhere in this cosmic realm, I just want you to know I'm sorry that happened. And I'm going to make our tribe proud. And I'm going to show the rest of the world that Slavic and Irish descendants of people who were harassed and enslaved can make good choices. And so I choose not to be mad at race or racist towards Muslims, towards Serbians or Turkish people, Brits, Scotsmen, you know, the Vikings, you know, those are Norwegians and Danes. I choose to make our tribe proud of who we are and rise above the negative bullshit that racism causes in the modern world. So it's deep. It's deep.
Yeah, it's powerful, and we're right there with you.
So here you go, Bennie the Mongoloid, the racism harangue. It's a new word I just learned, by the way. It means rant, right? Bennie, this guy could be Bennie right here. Bennie was challenged, all right, was born with a messed up chromosome. Science said he was Mongoloid. The real challenge came from those around him. They made fun of him incessantly, pushed him around, called him ugly and stupid. Kind of like Mongoloid racism. They were ignorant instigators, so hateful, raised without self-respect. After all, racism is really not about being different, nor about the color of our skins. It's the cover people use for hate. Plain and simple. So thanks, Bill, for a lively conversation. And I just want to say, you know, do good, people. You know, make your tribes proud. You're stronger than that. It's easy to blow stuff up and hurt other people. It's much more of a challenge to rise above that and be the bigger person. Love and respect to everybody. Thanks for listening in to another episode of the Poetry Corner. And I I wish you safety and happiness and peace wherever you are.
Well said, my friend. This is AHO Radio, the Poetry Corner. Poet John Krotec, and the poem was Bennie the Mongoloid. It's your co-host Bill Protzmann. Thank you for listening. Subscribe, and we'll see you again on the flip side. Thank you for joining us on this episode of AHO Radio. Information we mentioned is probably in the show notes, but if we missed anything, please let us know and we'll get it added for you. Subscribe to the AHO Radio channel on YouTube to stay connected, and as always, we wish you health, success, and significance. AHO!
AHO!
AHO!